Tiffany Bova is the Global Growth and Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce. As a highly sought-after speaker, she is known the world over for expertise on sales transformation, business model innovation, and growth. Many of you will remember her from past Advantage appearances when she was with Gartner as the Vice President and Distinguished Analyst focused on the future of sales. Tiffany is consistently ranked as one of the most influential women in sales and marketing. She's also a future best-selling author with a new book, a legitimate new book called Growth IQ, coming out this August. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tiffany Bova.
Well, good morning, everybody. I should say aloha, because that is my language. I was born and raised in Hawaii, so anybody else from Hawaii in the audience? Everybody knows how to say aloha, so that's for sure. Well, thank you very much for making time this morning to come and join me at this NEC conference. It's great to be back, I guess, for my third time. Third time's a charm, I'm hoping. The last two times I was here, as was mentioned, I was a research fellow at Gartner covering sales transformation, and really what was going on from a channel industry perspective and in the solution provider and agent, master agent, value-added reseller business. And what's been great over the last 2.5 years since joining Salesforce is I've actually gotten a chance to get closer to the business versus being kept at arm's length in my previous role. So this presentation is all about what I feel businesses are now really starting to realize, that the customer experience imperative is now in front of us. And what does that mean? Why should you care? When I say customer experience, I want to be very clear. I mean the customer's experience, your customers. The experience they have with your brand, with your people, online, offline. The experiences they have with you, with the technology that you may develop on your own. Anything that they have from a human perspective. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that a machine can't give them this experience. So it could be a bot, could be machine learning, could be AI, but it's really the way in which that they feel when they engage with your brand. So as I said, why should you care? So the number one reason for me right now is growth is getting harder. For those of you who have been doing this for some time, you may feel like, well, it used to be easier for us to attract new customers. It used to be easier for us to upsell and cross-sell or introduce new products. It was easier for me to hire new staff. There was a plethora of people we could pick from. Now we have new skills, new talent. I have to constantly be investing in my technical talent, especially around some of the new advanced technologies. My salespeople, do we still need them? Is that where we should be putting our money? Marketing is not the same anymore. It's not print, it's not direct mailers. It's this combination of all this social. It's just getting harder. And it's getting harder because it's getting not only more complicated, but the customer is changing significantly. And because of that, the new product actually is customer experience. Now, for those of you who love products, you're probably going, wait a minute. There's just no way that you can say that the products we are now selling is an experience. And I would tell you that it is fact is the case. How many of the audience have actually caught an Uber in the last 30 days? Okay, keep your hands up for a second. How many of you remember how much you paid? So of the people who raised their hand, about half the hands went back down. So why is that? People actually are beginning to remember the experience longer than they're remembering the price that they paid. So why do we catch Uber versus a taxi? Let's just pick on the fact that it's a job. I'm going to get from point A to point B. I can catch a taxi, I can catch an Uber. Why catch an Uber? The same job. Which hotel over the other hotel? I need a place to sleep. Which airline over I need to get from point A to point B. You are picking things based on more than just price now. It may be experience. So for me, from an Uber perspective, it's very easy. I travel around the world as Scott does, and I never have the currency of where I am. So Uber saves me from having the currency of the country that I'm in. So number one, it's ease of use for me for currency. The second reason is it completely directly connects automatically to my expense report. So now the receipt from Uber goes right into our expense report. I no longer have to print it out, take a picture, attach it. It just literally attaches, and the ride itself will show on the expense report so that all I have to do is say where I was going from and to, but everything else information-wise is already entered. The third reason I use it, and sort of more importantly to me really, is that because I do travel a lot, I travel alone, is that someone will know where I was last, which is always important. So from an Uber perspective, it was currency, it's expense report, and it's a safety. So I have literally stood on the corner while it's snowing in Buffalo or New York with my phone in my hand during surge pricing, waiting for my Uber as taxis drive by. That is commitment to experience. Because I'm paying more money. At the end of the day, I'm literally paying more money. So the product in that case is the experience that I have. And so when people say, I want to Uberize my business, I want to Airbnb my business, how do I compete? It isn't really about the business model. You have to think about it as a mental model. The way in which they approach what it is that they're selling and what it is that they're delivering. In the Uber example, they don't own any cars. In the Airbnb example, they don't own any hotel rooms. In the WeWork, they don't own offices in the classic way. It really has everything to do, what's the experience that someone's going to have at WeWork? What's the experience someone's going to have at an Airbnb home? What's the experience someone's going to have in an Uber? That is what they're competing against. And so digital transformation has really resulted in a couple of things happening entirely different as it relates to customers. The first thing is that we used to be, for those of us who have been doing this for some time, it used to be that we were very reactive to what our customers wanted. They would call us on the phone, someone would take a message on a pink piece of paper and leave it on our desk, or they would leave a voicemail. We would check our voicemails at the end of the day, maybe even a fax, or they would come by the office. And we would react to whatever it was that they wanted from us. We would respond to whatever it was that they wanted from us. They would call our call center because they had a problem. Customer service, customer support, technical issues, they would pick up the phone, they would call. That was sort of thousands of interactions. Then we sort of moved to being better and using technology and becoming much more proactive. So think about in your industry, it might be, we're going to have the phone systems are going to be down from this time to this time because we're doing an upgrade. Or we're going to be updating some software. Or the data center is doing this. Or the website is going to be down from this time to this time. We're proactively reaching out and saying, you know what, there's a recall on a product. Or we think that it's time for you to change the oil in your car. This is all being very proactive around what we think our customers will want to know from us based on the information that we have and that we're gathering through the new systems or through the technology that we're using. So that was millions of communications, right? You could blast someone out in an email and say, just want to let you know this is going to be happening. We're moving offices, we changed phone numbers. Very proactive. Even something like your credit card is going to expire proactively versus letting it expire and then the customer calls in. Simple fix. As soon as you reach out and you tell them, your credit card's going to expire, it's not going to renew, we don't want service to be interrupted, more likely than not, it would then create them to do something for you that you were looking for. Once again, to the millions. Now we've moved to something that we call predictive. Customers are now expecting us to predict what they may want next. Now, the examples I'm about to give, you're going to say, Tiffany, these are very B2C examples, Uber, Airbnb, right? Very B2C. And you say, I'm a B2B business. Well, I'm going to guess that each of us in the audience are consumers in our day life, as well as employees or business owners. So we are all consumers as individuals, and we happen to work at businesses. We do not leave our consumer expectations at home when we show up to work. So how many of you have purchased on Amazon over the last 30 days? All right. How many of you took the Amazon training on how to use and buy Amazon? Don't raise your hand. It was a trick question. Joke. That was my attempt at a joke. There is no training because it was super intuitive. But their predictive engine, which if you've bought anything, it'll say, people who bought this also bought that. If you bought this, you need batteries. How many times have you bought something, walked out of a store, forgot the batteries, had to go back? Now what they've done is they've taken all this analytics and all this machine learning. Their predictive engine, by the way, generates in the mid 30% range of their gross sales on Amazon.com. just predicting what someone may want based on what other people have done. So that's not being reactive, like you ordered something, you needed batteries, now I got to call or I got to reorder, or being proactive and saying, oh, we saw you ordered this 3 days ago, you may want batteries. This is, we know that if you buy this, you're going to want that. You buy this, you're going to want a cover. You're going to want, you're going to buy that. Other people have bought these other 3 accessories. So from a predictive standpoint, in a customer experience world, it would be you looking across the landscape of your existing customers and saying, hey, what's common amongst them? What can I learn from them? And how do I go find more that look like them? And can I find customers where people who bought one thing and bought another are more likely to buy the third? Because in this particular industry, or this particular vertical, or this particular geo, these customers tend to buy these 3 things. So can I apply that to another geo, or another industry, or another size company, or another customer who has these 2 things? You know what? I'm going to predict that they probably need it. So I'm going to create a campaign, and I'm now going to proactively go out and say, hey, people who buy apples and oranges also want pineapples. So if you call into my customer service center and you have apples and oranges, and I see you're in this vertical and you're about this size and you had this tenure with us, all this analytics is going to make your customer service agent that much smarter that people like you are also going to want something like that. And so that's what I mean by predictive. That's becoming millions of interactions. And for those of you who are in IoT or doing anything where artificial intelligence or machine learning or bots, anything is doing it on your behalf, there's going to be billions of communications between things to each other in a very predictive fashion. I'm about to fail, I need to be fixed. Send out an alert, open up a ticket, customer service person comes in and takes care of it, or technician comes in and takes care of it. And so we have to not only think on the human side of being reactive, proactive, and predictive, but we need to also think about it from a machine world. So we have a client by the name of Kone who does elevators and escalators, and they're all in on this. And they use our Service Cloud to actually receive all that incoming information from the things that are happening. This elevator needs a repair, or this escalator needs to be oiled, or whatever it might be, and it opens a ticket, and then it actually scans through intelligence to see which driver has the right parts on hand in the truck and is the closest and can get this done the fastest. And the driver doesn't even know that it's happening all from analytics and all from prediction, and all happening from machine learning, and pushing out those service tickets with all the information that they need, and so that they don't show up to a job and say, oh, I can't fix this because I don't have the part. And so it's reduced repair time, it's increased customer satisfaction and customer experience. The amount of time that machines or elevators or escalators are down has reduced significantly, because they're saying we're going to be much more proactive and predictive in combination, using technology to enable us to give us a better experience for our ultimate customers, who are the building owners or airport owners, or events like this, like the escalators that brought us upstairs here today. And so you have to think through, what do we mean? This isn't just a human equation. When we say experience, we mean all up. It's the sum of every single touch point that your brand has with a customer. And so let me give you some examples. So who does it well? So I'm going to lean a little bit into consumer for a second. Tony Heish, if you know who he is, he was the CEO of Zappos. They're so focused on customer service that they actually have a University of Wow in Las Vegas. If you're ever looking to upskill your customer service organization, that's the place to take them. They basically, like similar to Disney, will teach you how to be really strong customer service organizations. It is all about the experience. They sell shoes. There are thousands of people who sell shoes, thousands of businesses who sell shoes, and thousands of businesses, if not millions of businesses, that sell them online. And they don't actually make any of their own shoes. So what's the experience? What's the product? It has to be the way in which they engage with their customers. So they decided to say, we are going to ship for free and ship back. So let me give you just the last sort of interview of somebody who is going to work in their customer service organization. Thank you for going through your 6 weeks of training. It's time for us to sort of solidify this relationship. We want to know if you'd like to continue to work here. Here's a $2,500 check that you can take and no harm, no foul, and you can just go on your merry way, and we've appreciated you being here for 6 weeks. Or, we can keep the check and you can keep the job. Why do you think they do that? They want to know if you're really committed and you believe in their philosophy around customer experience. Because if you're just there for a paycheck, you're going to take the check and you're going to walk out. Because you've just been paid for 6 weeks, now you've got $2,500 in your pocket and you can walk out. You'd be surprised how few people take the $2,500 check, because they can recruit right for the right personality, for people who want to deliver the best, most compelling customer service experience around making sure that their customers are successful. There is no question that that is their product. It is the experience in the way in which they engage with their customers. The next one, Steve Jobs. This is not a quote that you will have just seen for the first time. I don't need you to be as forward-thinking as Steve Jobs. So I know absolutely where the puck is going, and I know that in 2018, we're now having the conversation about how do we get people to not be addicted to their smartphone. I'm not sure that's what he anticipated was going to happen, but he was maniacal about making sure that he was developing and designing products for the customer, not designing products and then saying, let's go try sell them. Number one reason many startups fail is because they develop a product that nobody wants. So the risk is you're going to have a lot of failures before you have a hit, but you have to make sure that you're understanding what it is that your customers want. Once again, you don't have to be as far out as Jeff Bezos. But if you've read anything from their earnings, from their day one shareholder letter that he still continues to do, the way he holds meetings, et cetera, it is all about being customer obsessed. His management meetings only have as many people in it as can eat 2 pizzas. So that's one of his rules, which I'm always questioning because I know people who could eat 2 on their own. But, say a piece or 2 each, so sort of 10 people in the room. The second thing he does is there's only as many chairs in the room as there are people. And then there's one empty chair that sits at the head of the table for all their big executive meetings. Who is that chair for? The chair is for the customer. So it's a default sort of image when people will say, I think we should do this. He'll go, yeah, great. What do they think? What does he think? What does she think? What does the customer think? And so it has become now people will actually go, well, they want, and there's no one sitting there. But it is an image that gets everyone very, very focused on not the competition, but on the customer. And we all don't have the luxury of maybe going a couple of years without profit and all that. I get there's a lot of complications in that statement, but I just want you to take the nugget of being very customer obsessed, and how can you even do something so simple like change a chair in a meeting to try to get people to understand that you want to become much more customer led. I'd be remiss if I didn't stand up here and give a quote from our own CEO, Mark Benioff. For any of you who know us, we are absolutely maniacal about customer success and making sure that our customers are getting what they want out of the technology and out of the services that we provide. Because if our customers grow, guess what happens? If they grow and they need to hire 10 more salespeople or 20 more customer service reps or 5 more marketers, they have to buy more technology. So the more successful they are, the more successful we are. And if we're not interested in their success, that means we're not interested in our success. So at the end of the day, it has to be this win-win. In our case, if our customers are not growing and they're shrinking and contracting and going out of business, not good for us. So at the end of the day, that's what we hone in on. But this is a telling one, especially for people that are in the industry that is much more product-led. Here's a statement from Ford. Ford will build self-driving business that prioritizes the people experience over the technology experience. So for any of you who have paid attention to television commercials of late, I think you've really seen a shift in car companies talking about what they talk about when they're trying to get someone to be interested in their brand of car. It used to be engine and horsepower and how fast and how it took turns and handled in the bad weather. Now it's all about you can plug your smartphone in. It's totally smart. You can put your iPad right here. It's very much more people-centric and experience-centric. And even in brands like consumer brands, consumer packaged good brands, whether it's their sustainability message, whether it's their equality message, whether it's their diversity message, you see people pivoting towards being much more aware of who their customer are who their customers are and who it is that they're trying to attract and what is interesting for them in order to be attracted to that brand. It is no longer about just the products. And you could argue that it's even less about the products now because the competition has gotten so active. But the challenge that we have here, after giving these examples, is almost like a master class in Undercover Boss. Because we all wake up every day with the greatest intention, and I bet your employees do as well, on the sales side, on the marketing side, on the customer service side. I'm just going to talk about customer-facing individuals at the moment. They wake up every day wanting to do what's right by you, what's right by the customer. I doubt they wake up every day and say, I really want to piss off our customers today. I doubt that's what they say. But what happens? So I'm going to give you a couple examples. So I was on the phone with someone for tech support. It was for a internet problem I was having. So it was a telephone carrier. And the call was an hour and a half. It was a great call, and I'm not being sarcastic. It really was a great call. The guy on the other end of the phone really helped me. He was knowledgeable, he was friendly. You know, I was frustrated, and he just worked like a champ through that whole hour and a half call to resolution. But every 29 minutes, we had to hang up, and he had to call me back. Now, why do you think that is? He had to hang up and call me back because his metric was you cannot be on the phone longer than a half an hour with a customer in the call center. But my call was an hour and a half, and I needed an hour and a half. And he was giving me great service, and it wasn't fixed. So the only way he could work around that decision that was made at some executive level was to hang up and call me back. Now, once again, I'm sure he didn't wake up this morning, right, that morning, and say, I'm going to piss off my customer and hang up on them every 29 minutes. No, it's not what he said. What's happening is customers are getting the exact experience that you either intentionally or unintentionally have designed for them. Like the 29 minutes. Somebody made a decision somewhere in the organization that the metric was 29 minutes. And if that person went over the 29 minutes, they were potentially going to be written up for, or flagged for. They stay too long on the calls. Like they're not efficient. We need to train them. It has to be something that's wrong versus, wait. It might just be the customer, i.e. me. I needed an hour and a half. And it fixed my problem. It was a first call resolution. It just happened to be an hour and a half. I'm okay with that. It was better than 29 minutes and then him saying, I'm going to have someone call you back tomorrow or in 2 days or in 3 days. Or, 5 days later, it finally gets fixed. I was okay to sit on the phone for an hour and a half. I felt badly for him that he had to hang up the phone because I absolutely knew why he had to hang up the phone. So I said, okay, I'm just going to ask. Is it because you have a 29-minute metric or a 30-minute metric? He said, yes. I knew that that's what it was. Another one is I was traveling internationally, and it was a very large hotel chain, and I'm a sort of platinum member in the hotel chain. And I wanted to call, somebody had booked 5 hotels for me in Australia and New Zealand because I was over there for about 10 days. And so I wanted to call and get my loyalty number added because they didn't add it. So I called in the US, I go to the priority line. They know that it's me because of my cell phone number. So, hello, Ms. Bova, thank you for calling. How can we help you? I have 5 reservations that I need to share with you so that you can add my loyalty number. A1234, oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Bova. That must be an international reservation. We actually don't have letters in front of our confirmation numbers in the US. And I said, as a matter of fact, it is. It's Australia. They go, I can't help you. You're going to have to hang up the phone and call all 5 properties. Sorry? You see I'm platinum. I don't know, 700 stays or something, some ridiculous number, whatever it is. Nope. You are my top customer, right? You are a 1%er. You're supposed to get the best service. You knew who I was because I called in. So you fixed that from the phone system. So you've got that as a great experience. Then the person answers the phone, very nice, welcoming, says my name, thanks me for being a platinum stayer. That was a great experience. And then we get to the brass tacks of what I need them to do. And they say, nope, you got to hang up the phone and call all 5 properties. Let's go back to what I said. I doubt she woke up that morning and said, I'm going to piss off our best customers. It's not what she said. But there has to be some reason. So is it 1, because they didn't allow the field to have an A in the reservation number in the US system? Maybe. Is it they don't let the call center reps call out internationally, because she had to call the properties maybe on my behalf. So even though the system couldn't do it, she wasn't even willing to call all 5. So it was because she couldn't call out? Was it because the metric was if she was going to call all 5 properties, she would have been on the phone longer than her metric would have allowed? Let's assume she wanted to do it. So let's assume it's one of those 3 things. Once again, going back to this unintentional decision. Someone made a decision to not let the call center reps call internationally, not to take international confirmation numbers, or that if that was the case for a platinum member, I'm not going to let you stay on the phone longer than the 6-minute, 5-minute metric. So I was at a dinner last night with a bunch of customers, and it was interesting. You know, we were sort of going around the table asking what people were saying, and they were talking about the things that they've improved, and a number of them said, we're at first call resolution, we're picking up the phone in an hour, they're off the call in 6 minutes, like going back to that same very metric that now we're much better at capturing because we have all this fantastic technology that will measure the dust on every minute of the day of our people that interact with our customers. Instead of saying, hold on a second, how do we flip that on its head? And why do we need to flip it? Why do we need to flip this on its head? Because the customers are actually far more disruptive than the technology is today. We as individual consumers have greater expectations in our engagement with technology than we ever have before. I am a digital immigrant. I got my first laptop when I was 19. My first cell phone was probably around 18 or 19. I was very, very early. I've been selling technology for 25 or 30 years now, and I can tell you that never have I been in a situation where the customers are far more educated, they know more about what it is that they're buying, they have all the information we as salespeople and marketers and companies used to hold close to the vest, and we would trickle out to our customers as we wanted them to know it. References. They don't need you to give them references anymore. They can find a reference on their own. Pricing. They can get that on their own. They can find out what other people think of you at push of a button. It's very, very different. So the customer is so far more disruptive than the technology that if you're not paying attention to the customer in the decisions that you make as a business, you're really missing an opportunity. So what do? First and foremost, we need to get into a mindset that you've got to think about how do I pivot my thinking towards moving from product-led to customer-led. The next thing you need to do, and the difference between those, by the way, is that sort of Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos and sort of those quotes that I shared with you, is I want you to think about what does your customer actually want from you? When was the last time your executive team sat on a customer service call and just listened to what your customers say in your call centers? When was the last time your marketing executives went on a sales call? And not as a marketer, but maybe as like a new hire salesperson. So you could hear how the marketing materials are actually getting used in the field or not. Being customer-led means spending time with your customers. Not when they're just buying from you, not when there's a problem. I mean understanding what they're doing with the things that you're selling to them. More importantly, are they more successful because they're using your technology and your services? The next is thinking about data analytics and intelligence. And because we're in Texas, I'm going to use this analogy. Data for me is the new oil, no question. But you cannot pull up to an oil rig in Texas and put that into your car and your car drives away. That's not what happens. So for me, analytics is actually the refinery that the oil needs to go through. But the intelligence is the gasoline or the petrol that moves the business forward. The only way you're going to be able to scale what I'm talking about here is if you really start to lean into the data. If you don't have a CRM system, I'm not saying it has to be Salesforce, would love for it to be Salesforce, but at the end of the day, you need something. You have to start capturing customer information so that you can start doing those things around predictive, like I said, instead of just being in reactive mode. If you're running any part of your business at this moment as it relates to sales, marketing, or customer service in an Excel spreadsheet, the person that is suffering the most is your customer. minus the fact you probably have very little idea what's going on really in your business. So you have to think about data analytics and intelligence in a different way. Using the data, refining that data, taking that intelligence and making very different decisions. Because of those things, customer-led, and then starting to say, we're going to make decisions based on data and intelligence, we now need to think about reimagining talent. Do we have the right people in the right roles? Do we have the right engineers? Do they have the right skills? If they don't have the right skills, how do we reskill them? How do we make them feel comfortable with AI and machine learning and bots and even customer service reps using bots to handle very transactional things? I remember the days when managed service providers were like, oh no, we have to roll a truck out to see our customer because we want to hug the server and make them feel our value. And then slowly over time, took about 15 years for managed service providers to be, no, you know what, our customers are okay with us remotely monitoring. I got to tell you, I think it was more of the channel resisting that than the customer saying we didn't want it. Because the talent was like, well, if we're not rolling trucks, we don't need all of our engineers, so we're going to get rid of people. We don't want to get rid of people. We're a people company. I'm not telling you to get rid of people. I'm saying that you have to figure out, how do I reskill them? How do I prepare them for the fourth industrial revolution? Which, by the way, guys, we are in the middle of, there is no stopping it. We are here. And so what are you going to do? So I'd say that I get nervous as I travel, and I do lots of these, and I talk to lots of you, and I am optimistic. I think that the technology indirect channel, I think the people that sell and deliver and deploy and support technology, we are the ones that are powering all these things that are changing. But we are still finding it very difficult to respond. We don't even know how to navigate. New talent, what does that mean? Like, how do I find them? How do I hire them? How do I keep them? How do I pay them? If I'm going to use data and intelligence, do I trust the data? I've always sort of run it on my gut. I know what my customers want. No, that never happens here. We tried that 3 years ago. It didn't work. That conversation, we have to start to now lean in. What's the power of the combination between human and technology, and how does the 1 + 1 of those two things equal 3? And so the only way that you can get there, and I know that I may be speaking to a room more on the technical leadership side, but I'm going to hone in on the customer facing again for a moment. First and foremost, you have to break down the silos in the organization. So I'm going to pick on one for a moment. For those of you who know me, I am a recovering seller, full stop. I bleed sales blood. I believe salespeople rule the world, but that's just my opinion. The argument and the fight between the sales and the marketing department is one of my favorite topics. Sales? Marketing doesn't give us good leads. They're crap. Marketing? Sales never takes advantage of our leads. They don't do anything with it. They don't use the PowerPoints we put together. They don't use the white papers we work so hard on. They don't use the customer testimonials. They're not using any of our stuff. Sales metric is how much did you sell? Marketing's metric, I'm oversimplifying. How many leads did you generate? The silos between those two are long-standing. But I'm going to add a third. Sort of the third rail in customer experience now is customer service. Once again, at the dinner last night, someone said, we always have viewed customer service as a cost center, which is when you need to cut costs, sometimes you cut service. When you cut service and you're in a recurring revenue business, what happens? Your customers don't have a good experience. What do? They churn. So what did you do? You saved some costs, but you lost 2% of your customer base, 3% of your customer base. So the disconnections are hurting your organization and ultimately hurting your customer. So you have to think about, what are the metrics I can share across those three organizations, like Net Promoter Score, customer satisfaction, churn rate, lifetime value, basket size, recency of purchase. How many times do they actually call in? Are we watching them individually? I'm a sales rep who has sold $1 million this month. I'm going to go to club. Sales rep next to me only sold $750,000, not going to club. But my customers, 35% of them churn out in the first 6 months. The person who sold $750,000 has very low churn. So the net of that at the end of the year is I might only have 600,000 in revenue from what I sold that got me to club, and the 750 person still has 750. So who actually sold better in that example? I was measured on top line, $1 million. I'm at club. Wasn't the best set of customers that I acquired. So you have to kind of reimagine what are the things that you're going to do. So how do you do that? So how do you build a modern growth company with a customer who's far more disruptive than the technology? We have the power in our hands that we can do things that, just 10 years ago you wouldn't even think about doing. We have machine learning and AI starting to take over some of the low-hanging fruit of tasks that we can automate and get our people to spend more time doing the high-value things. So how do we build it? How do we build a modern company? How do we build a modern company that's going around the racetrack and change the tires on that modern company without disrupting revenue? That's the question, $1 million question. How do you change the tires on the cars that's going around the track because you don't want to disrupt revenue? Unless you're a publicly traded company, minus them for a second, for all of you who are privately held companies, the only person is you. You have to get yourself to think, you know what? I might take a dip in revenue over the next 18 or 24 months, but I'm going to get much more profitable, be much more healthy, be much more secure in our long-term growth from our customer base. Top line is only about you if you're privately held. Yes, you have to pay your bills. I'm just talking about if you're a $20 million company or a $10 million company, are you willing to go to a $7 million company to be healthier? Are you willing to take a shave on your top line revenue to make sure you're focused on the right things? I find that to be very difficult for many businesses because they feel like their top line performance is sort of shows how healthy and how stable the company is. So you have to think about how do we reset thinking? How do we reset your thinking? How do you go back on Monday morning after you spent time at this event? How do you get with your people and how do you sit down and go, okay, we haven't been thinking about customer service correctly. Maybe there's some things, let's look at those processes and how do we make it better? But you can't do anything at all as it relates to customer experience until you start with your people. Your customers will only be as happy as your employees, full stop. If your employees are not happy, I guarantee your customers will not be happy because they won't provide them good service. On the phone, in person, they'll do kind of a half-baked job. They're not going to finish stuff. They don't follow up because they're not happy. If they're not happy, it just sort of permeates. It's like this little black cloud that floats over them. And so if your people aren't happy, your customers will not be happy. Next, technology is not the silver bullet here. Technology enables change in business. The biggest change actually comes from the people and process side, not from the technology side. The example I gave about the hotel chain and asking me to hang up and call was a Salesforce customer. There's not a technology problem. That was a people process problem. Can't call out internationally, no field that allows a letter. They just had to change those simple things. It was a people process problem, not a technology problem. And the only way you can start to pivot those two things where you say it's going to be people first, technology enables, it's not going to fix every problem. We have to start to think about what is the experience we want to deliver, what intentional decisions are we making for our people to empower them to make the right decisions for our customers. At the end of the day, culture and innovation are the winning combination, period. If your culture can handle the pace of change, you can't show up on Monday and go, it's sort of like, you can't show up on Monday and go, we're going to go after this blue ocean idea. Everybody ready? Hold on. Or we're going to completely pivot our business. If your culture cannot handle pace of change, if they don't know how to reskill, if the organization isn't really tightly connected with the right metrics and the right organizational structures, it's not rooted in some deep philosophy around it's customer first, it's trust, it's security, whatever your tenets are of your business, it will only go so far. Going back to the Zappos example, that is a culture. Salesforce, it is a culture. It just is deep in who and what we are and who they are. So you have to think about, what is your culture? Is it an engineering culture? You may say, you know what, our customers love us. That's fantastic. Great. How do you get more of them? How do you enable your people to do more, better, faster? At the same time, you can continue to accelerate and grow the business. So we, as this kind of collective ecosystem, and I say this as from a vendor perspective and a channels perspective and a small business perspective and a vendor perspective, a provider perspective, we have to develop this sort of beginner's mind. Now, let me be clear when I say beginner's mind. I do not want you wiping the slate and forgetting everything you know and starting from scratch. I actually don't want you to do that. What I want you to do is bring with you everything you know, but what I don't want you to do is say, we tried that a number of years ago, it didn't work. I thought about that one time, someone talked to me. You have to be willing to try sometimes the same things you've tried in the past, now with this new lens of, it's going to be customer-led, how do we use technology to actually capture and do it? You're going to have to do the hard work to turn this corner if you want to set yourself up for growth in the future. Because brands now are competing full stop on experience. If I went around the room and said, tell me somebody who you feel you had a really great experience with a brand, you had a really great experience with, we could double click pretty quickly and figure out what was it about that experience, and are you doing it? Remember, the B2C, B2B conversation, I don't believe in. I think it's B2E, sort of everything, everyone. That to me means we're all consumers, and then we have our business life. We're in our business life, and we come back to consumer. We have consumer expectations now when we download an app or we want to go engage with a brand. So we really have to think about eschewing these constraints that cause us to come up with the old answers to the same difficult problems. Be willing to push the envelope for both your leadership team and your people, but you have to create a safe environment where they can fail, try again, iterate, fail, try again, iterate. You have to protect them from doing and trying things, even individual contributors, to allow them to do what will be best for your customer. So with that, I hope that I've framed a little bit of a different perspective for you. Obviously not about technology, but more about sort of what is the tenets of your business and how are you going to start to align yourself around your customers, and what does that mean? As customers become much more empowered, you want to grow your business, they want a better experience, and bringing those two things together. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for the presentation. I'm going to invite Larry up. I think he's going to ask me some questions. Yes? So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany. Great message, as always. One of the things that we did at this event this year is we really studied past surveys, and we spent a great deal of time looking back at the last 5 years. And looking back at the last 5 years, going through the data, one of the things that came out, that you've been to this event a couple of times and spoke to us a couple of times, you came back as the highest rated presenter out of all of our presenters, so we really appreciate that. Yes.
Hopefully I didn't let you down today.
Yes, you did not. You did another wonderful job.
Great.
I don't say that just to compliment you, but also your message really resonates with our audience. So I got a couple of questions that they asked, and just go through. Yes, so the pressure's on.
Get ready.
All right. So if I currently have limited customer data, where should I start? What analytics would make the biggest impact?
Yeah, it's a great question. So like I said, I don't make any assumption that everyone's got full-fledged CRM systems and connected with marketing systems and customer service. But the first thing I'd tell you to do is, if you don't have those things in-house and you want to go down this journey, go on a customer listening tour. The voice of your customer should be embedded in every single decision that you make. So I'm just going to use Salesforce as an example. I work in a team that has analyst relations, which would sort of make you understand how I ended up here at Salesforce. But we have analyst relations, which I don't have anything to do with, actually. And then we have competitive intelligence. that sort of watches the competitive landscape. We have competitive pricing, and then there's a group called the Voice of the Customer, and then there's a group of us evangelists. There's a handful of us. But that Voice of the Customer team, we are 30,000 employees-ish at this point, and we're growing leaps and bounds. Just had our earnings call, sort of way above what we expected, and we've given guidance to 20 billion, I think, coming up here pretty soon. But you might be surprised to hear that the Voice of the Customer team at Salesforce on 30,000 employees is like 15 people. Wow. So they actually physically go out and they talk to customers. And they do it on a very regular cadence. It's an interview, it's a dinner, it's a survey, and then they read it out. That Voice of the Customer, all 5 of those groups, by the way, that I just mentioned that's on my team, all of us are customer facing, and we basically turn around and bring all that information back in. Right? So like the dinner I had last night, the conversations I'll have with you, you guys will give me, oh, I'm using this, or I'm doing this, or I'm really struggling with this, and I'm like, wow, I'm seeing a pattern, so let me bring it back. So I would say don't ever ignore the power of actually having a conversation with your customer. Get out from behind your desk and go out and meet them. Not about the new shiny technology, not about selling them something, just how is your business going? What are your goals for the year? How can I help you? So if you can capture that in a CRM system, all the better, right? Because then you start to look at, as I was saying, you get much more predictive if you start to see what customers start to look like, and you see there's kind of 4 or 5 groups of kinds of customers we have. And then how do we get better serving them? The answers are in your customer base today. You just have to go get them.
Thank you. That's great advice. Thank you. Another question here we got from the audience. What are the 3 things our partners can do to embrace digital transformation to become their customers' trusted advisor and positively impact the customer experience, as you talked about?
Yeah, so I'd say number 1, we just finished, there's 2 things I recommend to you. If you go to salesforce.com/research, there's actually new research out this week called The Connected Customer, and it gives a ton of really great data. It's global. We have global slices as well. There's 6,000 interviews. I mean, it's not a small undertaking. And talking about sort of what are customers looking for as they go down this digital journey. What do they look for from salespeople, from marketers, from brands, from service? How do they want to be communicated with? What do they think great service is? That's a great place to start, because I think if you walk in, having been at Gartner, you would say the sky is blue, and people would say it's not blue. I'd walk in from Gartner and say the sky is blue. They'd be like, oh my God, the sky is blue. Yes, it is. And you're going, oh my God, I've been telling them the sky is blue for. So sometimes you just need a third party to kind of give you some insight. So there's the connected customer, and then secondarily there's State of Sales, which also is about 2 weeks old. And we have State of IT, we have State of Service, and then we have some around verticals. But I would say to you that first and foremost, you have to make a decision that this is the journey you want to go on.
Sure.
And it isn't overnight. This is not a 1 quarter you're going to be done. This is not even 6 months. This is not even 1 year you're going to be done. This is going to be, if you really want to go down this journey, it's probably going to be 18 to 24 months before you start to really see, oh, okay, I've got a handle on kind of what's going on, and it will never end. You will constantly be iterating, but you have to be committed. You have to be committed. It's like you can't show up to the Ironman on the Big Island. Well, I don't know if we're going to have it this year, but you show up to the Ironman on the Big Island having never run, rode a bike, or swam.
Sure. Yeah.
That's not a good plan. Right. Yeah.
Great. Tiffany, thank you. So one final question. You travel around the country talking to channel audiences similar to ours. What are the top 1 or 2 biggest challenges you're seeing among the SI community, and how do they overcome them?
Yeah, number 1 right now is talent, for sure. So the challenge is that you may want to do all the things I've talked about, but you don't have the talent in-house. And you can't find it. Everyone's searching for someone that has 5 years of experience with customer service bots. You're like, okay, well, there's not 5 years of experience to have. So, you have to, that's why I said investing in your people. And instead of saying, look, if I can do this, I can get rid of some people, it's really how do we reskill them? So making the investments in your people, and I don't mean just the standard certification for vendors. I mean really investing in talent. And so that may force you to think differently about how you use talent. So is it really a full-time employee? Is it you use contractors different? Do you partner with someone else in this room who has overcapacity, or they're in a different market or a different vertical, but they have the ability to give you some air cover from a talent perspective? But I'd say this is not a lack of you not understanding what the market is saying or where you think it's going. It's, number one, you either don't have the talent in-house, or you don't have the leadership, and I sort of put that under talent, but you don't have the leadership to be able to guide this turn, because many of us have been doing this the same way. And for those of you that are growing right now, even harder, because you can't convince yourself that that growth is ever going to stop, right? You're just like, oh, we're doing fine. We don't need to do any of these things. So, you know, talent is probably number one. And then two, just kind of keeping up with the pace of change.
Sure.
Really, really hard. And I don't think you should chase all the shiny things. You really need to just pick what you want to be known for, and that's the lane you need to play in, and then, you know, sort of partner to deliver the rest.
Great. Well, thank you, Tiffany. As always, just outstanding job today. We really appreciate it.
Great.
Yeah. Really
Well,
do.
so for those of you who you know heard Scott talking about the book, so this is the book. So for just to let you guys know, yes, it's for sale now on Amazon. But I think it's the first 100 of you that are going to fill out surveys for the event are actually going to get a free copy of the book. So thank you to NEC for the support. But thank you guys very much. I look forward to seeing and hearing from you again soon, and hopefully you'll go check out the book. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tiffany.
All right.
Thank you.